So Coach Khan is a renowned speaker, best-selling author, and expert in leadership development and talent management. With over 20 years of experience helping leaders transform their teams, he brings us insights from his number one best-selling book, The Engagement Blueprint, offering a practical roadmap to creating a team culture of commitment, motivation, and high performance. So, as we celebrate the power and impact of women in leadership, let's take the opportunity to learn and invite a culture of engagement that sets our teams and ourselves up for success and not failure, as some want. Please join me in welcoming Coach Khan. Thank you, Coach.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Martin. And thank you to all of you here today. It's an honor. It's a pleasure to be here to join you, especially on such an amazing celebration, if you will, on a day when we are celebrating women globally. Although I don't think we should have one day to celebrate that. I think that should be every day, to be honest with you. So let's go ahead and get started. Maria, I'm going to make a segue from what you guys were talking about a little bit earlier. I know that Liz mentioned, for example, AI as part of what we're experiencing right now, the new technologies that are coming out, the biases that may exist with that. And in this age of AI, of artificial intelligence, they're bringing a lot of benefits and efficiencies. Technology always has. That's what we're seeking from that, the tool to help us get ahead, to be able to move that. But I want to bring us back to the fundamental differentiator, the one thing that can make or break any project team, and that truly is the people. So today, I want to share with you how to truly light the fire in your team without burning them out. And I would invite you all to look at this as a leader of project people, of a project team, but also as someone within a broader team. So when we talk about engagement, I invite you to consider this from your perspective, how it impacts you personally, but also what you can do as a leader to really help shape the environment that you're in with your team. For more than a decade now, I've been involved with a lot of activities, and it is about coaching young student athletes, about working with kids in different environments, because we are developing them to be the leaders of tomorrow. And when we think about teams, I want you to think about what comes to mind. For some of you, it might be your project team. For some of you, it might be your broader team at work. Well, for me, when I thought about a team, it was my kids. It was a lot of the people that I work with. And over those decades, I've been working with them. And one thing has been consistent. Over the years, we've worked together, and there is a formula that exists. There is a way to develop these kids to become leaders, to become champions in their own way. And when it works with kids, you know that there's something there. And in Greece, we have an expression that I want to share with you. And those of you that are from PMI Greece here might recognize this one. That from the young and the crazy, you learn the truth. Από μικρό και από τρελό μαθαίνεις την αλήθεια. And this is something that I want to bring forward because, when we are in that position to really see the truth in the eyes of our kids, we know that we're onto something. In this case, I've worked with women in many cases because I've been involved in sometimes in the HR space, sometimes in other environments where I have been surrounded by extremely strong women, by women that I have tremendous respect for. And they have learned, they have shown me what it means to be a leader. And they've demonstrated their strong ability to listen with empathy, to collaborate, to nurture relationships, while also at the same time achieving tremendous results, high performance, and getting things done in a sustainable way. So getting results the right way matters. And this is something that I bring to all of my coursework, all of my workshops, all of my speaking presentations, because at the end of the day, I believe that if we want greater equity between the genders in our work, in our life, we can start that here, right now in this conversation. So going forward, I won't be speaking about female leaders with you, but rather I will be speaking about leaders. Because to me, I don't want to be differentiating those things unnecessarily and creating a bias there. So to me, I'm going to be speaking to all of the leaders out there today. Now, as leaders, it's important to recognize that in our work, we face certain challenges. We depend on others for success. The environment that we exist in, that workplace environment, makes a huge difference. Some of the things that were mentioned earlier is, do we have the support in our environment? Can we create that? What kind of network do we have? What kind of structure do we have? And we know that going into an environment, even in a crisis, if the team is bonded, if there's a positive environment, if there's the right kind of environment, that has a big difference in our own well-being, in the way that we see things. When we make the commitment to nurture, to develop, to invest, to grow the people on our team, we want that commitment to be reciprocated. But how can we truly inspire that kind of engagement? How can we make sure that our people are on board with what we're trying to do? Well, let's start by defining first and foremost what engagement is and isn't. Okay. So when we talk about engagement, okay, employee engagement does not mean employee happiness. Let's not confuse that. Okay. If you've ever been into a retail store, you've probably seen employees there that might be very happily engaged in what they're doing, probably their phones or talking to each other, but very happily ignoring you as you're trying to get some service there. So happiness and engagement, not the same thing. It's also a misnomer to consider it just employee satisfaction. I've talked with a lot of satisfied employees that at some point picked up that phone call from the recruiter and were willing to entertain the idea of leaving, not staying with your company, not staying with your team, even though they said that they were satisfied, but they were always looking for something better. No, engagement, true engagement, is something a lot more than that. Let's look at a definition. Engaged employees are those that are involved in, enthusiastic about, and committed to their work, and who contribute to their organization in a positive manner. This is the definition that Gallup, the leading institution when it comes to engagement, speaks about. So on one hand, you've got how the employee feels about their work, how we feel about our work. Are we involved in it? Are we enthusiastic about it? Are we committed to that? Are we excited to go to those things? But it's not just about us, because an engaged employee looks at it in the context of the broader team and the organization. Those two things have to come together to truly feel that level of engagement. I want to reach out to all of you out there, and I want you to think about, in your context, how satisfied are you with the level of engagement that your team has right now? I want you to think about that question, and I want you to answer it this way. In the chat, and Maria's going to help me here with this one. In the chat, I want you to go ahead and give me a number. 1, being very dissatisfied. 2, somewhat dissatisfied. 3, somewhat satisfied. And 4, very satisfied. Higher the number, the higher your satisfaction. Go ahead. I will give you an opportunity to plug in those numbers in the chat. Go for it.
So we are trending at 3 and 4 right now.
Outstanding.
3 and 4. We are a team very satisfied with our engagement level, working team.
Now, I hope they're talking about everybody on their team, Maria, which would be good. Excellent. All right.
That's a point we can make.
Yeah.
Is there in your group someone who is disengaged? Do you have that one person?
That would be interesting to see. Are you noticing any changes when we broaden it out to the team and not just the leader?
Yes, we have some that are phoning their jobs in. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, you know, the interesting thing is that that's pretty consistent with a lot of the statistics. Let's take a look at some numbers, because I know that this group is very capable and data-driven when it comes to the statistics. So let's take a look at this. So from Gallup as well, when we look at some of the numbers that are associated with engagement, we see that the top level, the best performing organizations, operate at approximately a 70% engagement level. That means that 7 out of 10 people in their organization say that I am engaged, and they're displaying that on board. And you can see that level of energy. In the US, we are trending at about a 31% currently. That's about 1 in 3. So that's about 1 in 3 people only saying that I am engaged, I'm here, I'm contributing, I'm excited. Globally, that number drops down to about 23%. So it's below 1 in 4. Now, unfortunately, when we look at the European region, the numbers are a little bit more alarming. When we look at that, only 13% of employees say that they feel engaged at work in what they're doing. About 72% say they're not engaged, and an actual 16% are actively disengaged. These are the people that are so unhappy, their needs are not being met, that they are actively sabotaging your work. Perhaps you might have somebody like that even on your team when you look at it and you struggle to get them on board. But truly, why does engagement matter? Why is that important? At the end of the day, engaged employees are truly there with you, especially in a time of crisis, especially in difficult times. You see that they are the difference makers when it comes to that. Organizations that have a higher percentage of engaged employees outperform their competition. So if we want to win in the marketplace, we truly have to win first and foremost in our workplace. We have to transform those workplaces to be able to have a higher percentage of engaged employees if we are hoping to compete in the marketplace, because that is truly one of the biggest differentiators in what we can do. Well, let's keep going with this and think about it a little bit differently. I invite you to think about this following visual. Now imagine that there are 8 people in a boat. 8 of you are working towards this race. Now, one of you is truly engaged according to the statistics that we have for the European region. One of you is in there working hard, paddling away, trying to get to the finish line. 5, we can't really half a person, but technically would be about 5.5 are along for the ride. Every now and again, they'll dip their paddle in, they'll try a little bit. They're just probably looking around, going, what a wonderful view we have here. And then there's that 1.5 person at the back of the boat that's poking holes in there, trying to sabotage things, trying to sink your boat. That person is a problem, because that cancer can spread very easily to your team. So the question becomes, how do I get more people on board? How do I get more people paddling? Because if you are currently having the success you have without the majority of your people being willing to be on board and helping you and engaging and excited with you, imagine the difference that that could make for you and for your organization if you could get more of them on board. So, another question for you. What do you think the cost of disengagement is to you or your organization? And I want you to consider direct costs, indirect costs, and I want you to enter that into the chat. What do you think it's costing you?
Then we have a chain of people disengaged, then an organization that's struggling to get some value, or people not getting value from their own working efforts.
I would say that that's typical of an organization that's really teetering on that brink of becoming a toxic workplace, Maria. Because then when people's needs are not getting met, we get into this situation where we start looking at what's it costing me, what's it costing you, and now it becomes a truly transactional environment where everything is looked at purely from a monetary and a price standpoint. Employers are telling employees, it's your job, I give you a paycheck, do it. Employees are saying, well, if it's not on my job description and you're not paying me for it, I'm not doing it. And all of a sudden, we have problems, because engagement is all about the discretionary effort that people give. It's that above and beyond that what they do. We know the difference. We know that when we are committed to something, we give a little bit more, that little bit extra. But we also have to feel that it's more than just about you get a paycheck, do your job. So we're going to talk about that in a little bit. So let me wrap up this piece here about the true cost.
A lot of comments.
Sorry. Please.
Sorry,
no, go for it, Maria. Right.
So we have Maria saying employee turnover, loss of creativity, innovation, lack of enthusiasm, withdrawal, and indifference. That covers the disengaging part. I think the boat analogy is real. The toxic workplace is a human and economic cost. So no one's contributing at a real number, and they're going to be amazed at what they hear. Claire says reduced speed of delivery, so it's focusing on the work side. And Rika says that disengagement costs a lot more than we realize. Directly, it slows productivity, increases turnover, and leads to missed opportunities. Indirectly, it hurts team morale, stifles innovation, and weakens company culture. If people aren't fully in, the whole organization feels it. The real question is, how much potential are we leaving on the table and not utilizing it?
Excellent.
So, yeah, Lindsay
Excellent
says the
answers.
cost could be the ability to spend less time nourishing engaged team members. It's focusing on those who are trying to sink the boat. So, yeah, that's that.
Excellent. So all of these are true. Now, Gallup actually did some calculations in their fancy way of doing things. And what they discovered is the cost of lost productivity globally, worldwide, from employees that are either not engaged or actively disengaged is 8.9 trillion US last year. That's almost 9% of the global GDP. So when we are looking at where do our investments, where should our money go, and we look about the losses here, that is a huge amount to consider. Now, in your organization, that number may seem very big, and you may look and say, well, that's not relevant to me. It's so big that I can't really get my head around it. I invite you to think about it a little bit differently. For every member of your team that is either not engaged or actively disengaged, for every 10,000 euros, let's say, or pounds that you're paying them, 3,400 of that, 3,400 is lost productivity. That's what it's costing you on top of their salary. So think about that in terms of what's happening for you when you try to do the budget within your organization. But ultimately, some of the points that were made were exceptional because truly, engagement, when we think about it, when we have an engaged team, that leads to a better environment, a better culture. It enhances the well-being that we have. And when our well-being is in a better place, our productivity goes up. We know that firsthand. So it's important to really recognize engagement leads to well-being, which leads to higher productivity. These are the fundamental things that at the end of the day impact us on a daily basis. Now, we've talked about the problem. Let's talk about the solution a little bit. Let's talk about what we can do. Now, I spent about 18 months researching the data, analyzing case studies, my own and others, about what's worked and how engagement has made a difference. I interviewed experts from across industries and across the globe that were able to give me their perspective about engagement and how they've strived that and how it's made a difference for their organizations. And then I took all of that information and I applied one of our favorite principles, the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule, and found what are some of those fundamental things that are going to make the biggest difference. There could be a lot more, but I want to concentrate on a handful. And from that, that's where the book, The Engagement Blueprint, was derived and born. So another question to this wonderful audience. What's one thing that you believe would help you and others on your team feel more engaged at work? What do you think that one thing might be? Please enter your answer in the chat.
Let's give them a moment to think about it. Sense of ownership, Caroline says, yes. In-person team meetings, Aline. Becky, acknowledgement of work accomplished or participation. Yeah. Teamwork, workshops.
Okay.
Margaretetta. Doing what you say you will do, Lindsay.
Which leads to trust.
Yeah. Needs met, different for every person.
Okay.
Yeah. Tailored. Yes, everybody has a different sense or a different explanation of the needs that they have. So let me not skip anything. Nina says, well-planned and executed community building and career paths. Career paths, yes.
Nice. I like that.
It's not
very good.
Not often discussed, you know. Rika says, for me, one big thing is feeling valued. When ideas are heard and contributions are recognized, engagement naturally goes in.
Very good.
I think they are doing the presentation with you.
I love it.
Claire, yeah. Okay.
Well, let's see, because I think they're hitting the key points that we want to cover, Maria. So our audience is very smart in this sense. Excellent. So let's talk about what truly drives engagement. So there are 4 drivers that through my research I've been able to uncover. The need that we all have to feel valued, the need that we have to feel connected, the need that we have to feel productive and contributing, and finally, the need that we have to feel supported to learn and grow and advance. These are the four fundamental needs that we have in order to feel engagement. When those needs are met, we are able to give our best. So let's explore these in a little bit more detail in a moment. But before I get that, I have one of the little surprises, Maria, that we were sharing with our audience. I want you to think about, if you truly believe that your team is engaged, let's see which one of these four areas is your strongest, and perhaps which one you might want to work on. So if you have your cell phones handy, you're available there, your camera, go ahead and scan this QR code, and it will give you access to a report that will be generated just for you from that perspective. I'll give you a second. We'll show this at the end as well, Maria, so people can do it. I don't want to delay the presentation too much.
So Maria mentioned something really noteworthy. Apply the platinum rule. Rule. Treat others as they wish to be treated.
Perfect. Excellent. Yeah. And that is exactly right. So let's talk about what people might need from us, and perhaps what's reflected in what our needs are. So let's go ahead, and again, I'll show this QR code at the end for everybody if you didn't get a chance. So the first piece, feeling valued. We want to be understood. We want to see who cares about me. In an organization, if you're going to give your best, you want to know, does somebody care about me? Because people that feel appreciated are always going to do more than what is expected. So we have a responsibility to be able to provide certain things in order to do that. Because the question becomes, okay, I value people, but how do I show that? What do I need to do? It's important for us to be able to understand that. Let me share a little bit of a story with you, one of the case studies that happened in my work. Working with a community college in our area, a central urban one, I was invited in by 4 directors of different departments that were pulled together and asked to be one new department, the support services team. The problem was that these were very disparate groups. IT, accounting, HR, some of the other smaller one-off groups that had a responsibility. The leader of that group, this vice president, he was not very supportive of that. He was very absent in what he was doing. Would just come in and basically yell at them for not doing what they were supposed to do because it made him look bad. Many of you may be able to relate to this. So they approached me and said, what can we do? And the thing that I want to present to you is some of the ideas that we really implemented that demonstrate how to meet the needs of feeling valued. Okay? Because when you're a support services team, you want to feel supported and valued from that piece. So the first thing that we did is we wanted to create an environment where people didn't feel uncomfortable. On the surface, this team seemed to be working together, but you could tell it was like walking on eggshells. People were not comfortable sharing their ideas, they thought. They felt very afraid. They were very uncomfortable doing that. So the first thing that we did is we wanted to build an environment where people feel safe, physically, emotionally, and psychologically, to be able to share their information. We spent more time listening to them. We created avenues through feedback systems, through surveys, to be able to have their voice heard in a safe way until we started building that confidence. We started showing them that the difference between the departments was a strength. It wasn't a weakness. So we started being more inclusive between team members, with everybody else, allowing them to bring their best self to work. We started demonstrating respect to each other. And the respect that we talk about comes in 2 different flavors. The first one is the respect that we owe each other as colleagues, the civility that we have as people. We owe each other that respect. But there's that second level of respect that we bring when you acknowledge somebody for doing well for the team, for bringing something to the team, for adding value to the team, that added respect that we can bring. We started creating opportunities for people to acknowledge others. We had little cards that we put in places in common areas where people could pick up a card. If somebody had done something nice for them, they could nominate them. They could write down that person's name and what they did, put it in the box. And every week we would do a drawing for somebody to be able to win a gift card, to be acknowledged in the newsletter. That level of gratitude, and even everybody starting to say more, thank you, thank you. That acknowledgement started changing the culture of how everybody was there. And then finally, making sure that when people got together, their focus, their attention was right there. No distractions from phones, from computers, from other things. Even if you're together for 5 minutes, give people your full attention. That shows them that you value them, that you appreciate them for being there. So all of these things within 6 months made a tremendous difference to this group of people, this disparate group of departments, of project teams, if you will. And basically they came together, and all of a sudden now they became a very powerful and very strong department. Now, I wish I could say that the vice president changed, but luckily, because of all of this success, he got moved to a different area and got promoted from something else. And one of the directors was able to take over and continue the work that was being done. So that's just one story about how we can help people feel valued from that, right? What do you think, Maria? Have you ever been in that kind of situation?
Yeah, I think everyone has been in that other kind of situation.
Yeah.
And wished there were leaders like that to create such an inspiring workplace environment, to feel safe, to disagree, to accept the differences in opinions, to gain from these different perspectives, to have the respect to hear everyone, to give gratitude, and to give your attention, to actively listen to what everyone says. So for our great group of people here listening to us, that's a lessons learned and a best practice that they have to abide to.
Right. So let's go into the next driver, if you will. So the next thing after feeling valued is our need to feel connected. We all want to understand, where do we belong? Are we part of something? We all want to be part of something bigger. You walk into, for any of you that are sports fans, you walk into a stadium. If you're wearing the same jersey as somebody else, you feel connection. If you meet somebody that went perhaps to the same school, or somebody from the same part of the world as you, perhaps you're meeting another fellow member over at a PMI gathering, like right here, and perhaps they're from the same part of the world as you. You feel that connection. You want to belong. That is a basic need. We are all tribal creatures at heart. So we look at the passion that exists when people come together, when they can do certain things together. So that's an important part for us to look at. I saw that with all of my teams, because a team is a number of people with complementary skills that are committed to a common purpose, to performance goals that are shared, and an approach where they hold themselves mutually accountable. That mutually accountable piece is so important. You see that in the high-performing teams that exist out there. They're all working together. They have each other's backs. They have the vision of where they want to go together, and they hold each other accountable because they have that level of safety and support. So as you're looking at things with your team, you want to be able to strive for that. A few years ago, a client approached me and they said, we are expanding our group, we're scaling, we're getting bigger, and we have multiple locations with this IT group that we need to bring together. We've got people that have been with us for a long time, new people coming in, they're in different locations, some of them are starting to work virtually. We need to be able to feel more connected. So the work that we did was all about bringing this group together. We had our offsite, and our first focus was to try to build that respect between the leaders and each person, to start establishing that, getting to know each other, understanding where our drivers are, how we feel about things. And so building that respect with each other was important. And then we worked on establishing common team values and clear goals. We spent the day doing an exercise about building our shared values. What are the things that are going to govern our behavior? What can we agree on that's important for us? And then from there, let's look at the bigger picture. What are we expected to do, and how do we set our goals? We looked at what the team was already doing and what we needed to do in addition to meet the challenges going forward of these expanded responsibilities. We encouraged the trust and cooperation, not just between the leaders and each member. That was important. But it was important to also build respect between the different members of the team, regardless of where they were location-wise and how they worked. And we wanted to foster and reward teamwork. So we started acknowledging not just individual excellence, but the results of the broader group as well. Those were worked together as part of the success factors, the KPIs of the team. And then ultimately, we focused on building consensus, even in that meeting, deciding on which goals and which values we were going to move forward with. That was all using consensus as a team building tool. Because wherever you have the opportunity, even in your projects, set the scope, what's in and out of that scope, and then allow people to bring themselves into that project, to do the work in a way that they can contribute, that they can feel they're making a difference from that. In this case, I want you to imagine a wheel, almost like a wagon wheel. At the center of the wheel, you might be as the leader. And then connecting between that center hub and the outside is you and the connection you have with every person. When you look at those going out from that center, those spokes that go out from the center, you have that strong connection. You want to build that strong connection with each team member. But it's only when we are able to connect all the people as well on the outside together that this wheel starts rolling. That's the power of being able to connect as a team, as a strong team. Strong center, strong spokes, strong rim, we all work together and move in the right direction. So if you want people to feel engaged, help them feel connected to you and to the rest of the team and what you're trying to do, your shared goals.
I think Chris summarizes that into one small sentence. Synergy has greater results than cooperation, just mere cooperation, synergy. That's what we have to create. Yes.
Excellent. Because there's a big difference between people just doing the same work next to each other and truly coming together as a team. Big time. Excellent. So let's go to the next driver that we have. We all want to know that we can make a difference. We all want to know where we fit into this. If we were to take a picture, Maria, of our wonderful group here, if we were able to have everybody and take a picture, what would be one of the first things you think people would do if we gave them that picture and said, okay, here's the picture of the group? What do you think is one of the first things that they might do?
I don't know, track themselves in the whole scheme of things.
Yep. Everybody instinctively would try to find, where am I in this picture? Okay, I see this big picture. Where am I?
Is my kind of girl. Smile every time over it. Always doing.
Very good. Very good. So everybody wants to know, where do they fit into this bigger picture? Where are they in this big picture? And they all want to know that where they are, they can make a difference from that. So we all want to know how we're doing it. So we all have this need to contribute, to be productive, to do something different. If we're going to go to work, if we're going to do these things, for me to be engaged, I need to know that I'm making a difference. If what I'm doing doesn't mean anything, then it's harder for me to get engaged. So like Simon Sinek says, when people are financially invested, they want a return on that investment financially. But when people are emotionally invested, they want to contribute. They want to give. And there's no bigger place that you see that than with volunteers. You see that in the eyes of the volunteers that move forward. After Hurricane Katrina here in the U.S. in 2005, I was working for a large corporation. And at the time, we decided that our volunteer event was to go down and help in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina in some of the most impacted areas, some of the more impoverished areas, the poor areas in the city. And we partnered with a group called Kaboom, which was a company that focused on creating safe places for children to play. They created playgrounds. And in an area of devastation where the morale was so low, when people felt so down, one of the hardest things to do was create safe spaces for children to be, so the parents could be occupied with the reconstruction, to get back to work, to get back on their feet. So we went down there, and what we did is we built this big playground for these kids in this daycare center, this community daycare center, so parents could be able to bring their children to this place, and they could have, even in the midst of all this chaos, a place, a little oasis where they could feel safe and they could feel like kids again. They could have fun. And that would alleviate a big part of the stress on the parents. So we were able, even with this volunteer group, to align our motivation with the work that need to get done. And each person, what were they excited about to do, and put them to work in a certain way. We were able to provide them the right skills and tools, even in that moment, in that day. Here's how you do this. Here's how you connect that. Here's how you put that on. Here are some of the tools that you need. Here's a hammer. Here's a screwdriver. Here's a shovel. And then we created a line of sight between the work that we were doing and the ultimate outcome, the bigger picture of what we were trying to do. We recognized the work that people were doing and the different behaviors that we were looking for, and recognized them and thanked people for those things. Because when you thank somebody, when you acknowledge the good behavior that you're seeing, when you're catching people doing the right thing, you get more of that. And ultimately, we gave people the room to get work done their way, allowing them to design, to improvise, to put their creativity and their own special sauce into things. Now, this is the same thing that applies not just in a volunteer event like this, but every day. Look at your people, align their work with what motivates them, with what drives them. Understand what drives them, what really fuels them. Why are they doing what they're doing? Give them the skills and the tools. Create that line of sight, even between the most basic work that they're doing and the bigger picture, the contribution that it's making. There is no such thing as non-important work. Everything has a part to play in this. Recognize those behaviors, catch people doing the right thing, recognize them, and then ultimately allow them the room to contribute, to make a difference, to feel like they are part. You don't want them just to mindlessly follow instructions. You want them to be contributors. We want to be able to build leaders at every level. That is ultimately what we want to do. So if you want people to feel engaged, help them feel productive, like they're contributing. Yeah. All right.
I think we have a very strong audience. Every input they make is spot on. So Rika says connection drives engagement. When people feel valued and aligned with the team, they are all in. So strong team, strong results.
Excellent. Excellent. So we recognize that. The thing that I want people to understand is that these drivers of engagement are not just about employee engagement. This is human engagement. As people, we need this in our work, in our life, in everything that we are involved. This is what lights our fire as people. All right. Shall we go to the fourth one, Maria?
Yes, of course.
All right. Let's talk about the fourth driver of engagement. So when I talk about this one, I explain to people that water is a life source. Water brings life into a place. But the difference between a swamp and a river is one is stagnant, the other one has movement. And that's very much what we want to see with our careers and the way that we do things. Okay? When we are on board, it's important for us to understand that we need to invest in our people to train them well enough so they can do their job and even leave, but treat them well enough so they don't want to, so they want to apply the skills and the investment that we're making in them right where they are. Now, in this situation here, one of my clients is a group of people that I've been working with for over a decade. Over that time, when I first started with them, they were in a growth mode. They were trying to improve, and it's a big construction company. And this company that I work with here is one of 4 big regions within the country, within the U.S., that operate in very similar markets. But I focus on this one group that I work with here in my area. And at the time, they were operating at approximately about 150, 200 million in annual gross revenues. Their target, the strategic target over the next few years, was to get to 400, to basically more than double their revenue. What they didn't realize is that along with that is you need the people to make that kind of a giant leap. So what we did is we started looking at creating a people plan that truly matched their business plan. And so we encouraged a growth mindset within the group. We started saying, okay, even if we don't know something, we don't know it yet. So we started inviting people not to shut off, but to embrace this, embrace learning, and then reward that learning as much as we do performance. So we started looking for opportunities where we could actually have people that were participating in workshops, participating in on-the-job learning, going through coaching and mentoring, and recognizing that as much of a valuable effort as being on the job. And then we made learning available to everybody at the same level, not just one group or one level of leaders, but to everybody. We made learning available to all of them at different levels, maybe offered in different ways, but the investment was there everywhere throughout the organization. And then we wanted to make sure that within that, we grew people. The investment that we made was very purposeful. We wanted to make sure that every dollar that was spent in the right direction. So we created models and competency models on what are the skills that makes you successful at the project manager level. Well, here are the 5-10 things that you really need to be good at. And we focused on all of our development being on really helping people make those skills and get better at those skills. So even if they were in the role, they could excel. If they wanted to get into the role, they had a pathway to be able to do that. And then we started treating learning not as a cost. We didn't just calculate how much does it cost me to train my people, but rather what is the return that we're getting on that investment? What does that mean for us? The surprising results, and we saw that even all the way through the COVID years, is that this company more than doubled their revenue, exceeded. They were shooting for 400 at the time. By the time COVID was over, we hit 600 million in this region. This region, out of the 4 equal regions, hit 60% of the revenue for that year for the entire company. Out of the $1 billion that the company made in revenue that year, 600,000 came out of this one region, more than all the other 3 combined, because of the investments that we made in the people and what we did. Our retention numbers.
Sorry for interrupting, but how much of this value they created for each individual? How much value did they create? Yeah.
Tremendous. Our retention numbers, Maria, within this group were off the charts, 5 and 10 percentage points better, not just of our competition here in the market, but from other parts of the same company. So retention numbers, internal promotability, almost everybody that moved up came from within the organization. They were prepared and ready to move up. That kept people coming, staying with the company, because they knew that there was a career path that was going to be rewarded. And we set up the systems in such a way that people really felt like there was a path for them to be. If we lost anybody, and we lost some people, but they were not our best players. They were probably more the people that felt like, yeah, I'm not going to get there because I'm not cutting it. The standards were so high for performance and for what everybody needed to do. If you were not engaged, if you were not on board, if you were not giving your best, everybody around you could tell. And that's part of what keeps the good people and drives some of the less performing people away, because they know that they don't belong in this environment. I have an expression that I use, that ambiguity is the friend of mediocrity. Auristia, ambiguity, is the friend of mediocrity. High performers crave clear expectations. They want to know where the goal is, where the lines are, so I know what I'm doing. I know how I'm performing, and that's an important part of that. So we created all of these systems in place. We did the workshops, the leadership workshop. We did coaching and mentoring systems in there. We built teams around those things, and we built the systems ultimately that do it. So making sure that people have a career path, an opportunity to grow and learn and continue, that's like the river. It constantly flows, and it constantly gives people an exciting perspective that tomorrow something new is going to come along, something even better is going to come along. Which brings me to an extra slide that I really love and I want to bring in. As somebody who's built systems and trying to remove the bias that we talked about earlier against certain groups, whether it's women in the workplace or other minorities or other people that are negatively impacted by these biases, it's important to understand that when we build these systems, these valuable systems, we need to take into consideration the 3 P's of promotability. The first one is performance. How are people performing against clear expectations consistently over time? Not just a one time, but consistently. So as leaders, we need to make sure that we are showing how well we are performing if we want people to pay attention. The second thing is we need to evaluate potential. A lot of times we look at how somebody's doing in their role and we think that they will be just as successful as the next thing. That next role may require different things. It may actually require us to let go of some of the things that made us successful in our current role. So how well is somebody going to be able to deal with that transition? How well are they going to handle that extra complexity? Are they able to get the right results in the right way? It's that combination of values and performance. All of these things play a part in that. Are they willing to learn, to grow, to coach, to have that growth mindset? All of that plays a big part in potential. And then ultimately, the personal aspirations. This is an important one that a lot of organizations, a lot of managers, senior people that I talk to overlook. Just because you think somebody should be promoted, it doesn't mean that they want to be promoted or they're ready to be promoted. You mentioned earlier, Maria, in your own personal story when that promotion came up, where you looked at it, you knew you had young children at home. These expectations for you to be able to already be doing the two jobs you were doing, plus a third one on top of everything else, was not very conducive to your well-being, to your life balance. And so your personal aspirations may look at it and you say, yeah, this is not the right time for me, or my priorities are a little bit different. That's an important part that we need to understand. And the only way we're going to be able to understand that is if we have conversations with people. Now, during the COVID years, I know we mentioned that a couple of times, but at the tail end of 2020, studies showed that there were approximately 12 million women that left the United States workforce. They left from work and they went back to take care of children, of elderly, to take on the traditional role that was expected of them. Many of those did not return and are still not returning. We're still trying to recover from that. So it's important to factor in another P in this place, parental responsibilities. And those parental responsibilities sometimes, or most of the time, impact you as a parent with children. And sometimes those parental responsibilities may be the responsibilities that you have towards your parents. We are, for many of us, a generation that's like the meat in the sandwich. We are stuck between those two parts, taking care of younger children while also being important, caring for another generation before us, parents, aging parents, or others that we have responsibility for. Statistics show that women are disproportionately impacted by this, whether it's the societal norms or the established roles that we have such a hard time breaking away from. Women are very disproportionately impacted by these kind of responsibilities. And this is just their responsibilities as a parent towards children. I know, Maria, you mentioned that you and Liz especially has some important statistics about caregivers and what the impact of that is in the workforce. So these are some of the things that we have to pay attention to and we have to look at as we look at those personal aspirations. When somebody says, you know what, I have these responsibilities here and I can't take on these other ones at work, we shouldn't penalize them for it. If anything, we should look at how can we make this work better, because otherwise we are risking losing so much talent. I think about those 12 million women that left the workforce and how much talent left with them. So the 4 drivers of engagement, Maria, let's recap them quickly here. The need that we have to feel valued, the need that we have to feel connected, the need that we have to feel productive, and the need that we all have to feel supported to continue to learn and grow. Those are the 4 drivers, 4 important pieces. And if we get these right, then we will see tremendous difference for ourselves and for our team in wellness, well-being, productivity, and financial outcomes from that. So with that in mind, what questions does our group have, Maria? Do we have anything out there that people would like to ask about this?
So no questions, but big thank yous from Abdullah, spot on examples to explain the points. Lee says, so nice to have a speaker highlighting all of those things. Learning-driven companies are a sign of organizational health. Rika says, love that, Con, giving everyone access to learning and focusing on the right skills that makes the whole team stronger, smart and purposeful growth. Just like we've said, focusing on the long-term results, not quick fixes. Emma says, thanks for the specific insights for women. Amazing presentation for Liz. Perfect 44s. Thank you. Thank you from Vidya. Dipanwita says absolutely spot on the issues behind women acceleration in career path. So yes, I think
Excellent.
everything is resonating very well.
Good. Good. Well, then let's bring this kind of to a close then from that perspective. I want to leave our conversation here with one final note that I want to share from my heart. As somebody who's been in this space, like I said, I have been blessed to be surrounded by strong women throughout my life, throughout my career, and they have taught me so much about the value and the leadership capabilities. And so, as an ally, as somebody who has tremendous respect, I want to leave this final note with you that the way to achieve greater gender equality is not to pretend that the standards need to be lower for women. That's the mistake that a lot of men make out there, but rather to hold everyone to the same high standards and expectations that women hold themselves. That is the pathway to true equity from that standpoint. All right. Maria, I do have a couple of bonuses. Liz, I have a couple of things for people. I promised them that I would share the QR code again for anybody that wants to take the team assessment. Take a chance, go for that. If you'd like, join our growing VIP community. We continue to talk about engagement and how it impacts us in life and everything else, about building engaged organizations, committed, resilient teams. So plenty of good conversations there. I would like to offer Liz, Maria, to the group a couple of things. One is a signed copy of my best-selling book. We'll do a drawing for that. And the second thing I want to offer as well is a 30-minute coaching session with me that somebody will win. So I will rely on the two of you to do a drawing afterwards from our participants, from our guests, from our people that registered today. And if you'd like to get their information for me or bring me in contact with them, I'm happy to go ahead and either, for one, send a signed copy of the book to them. On the other one, we can get together and set up a coaching call should they want to. And with that in mind, I will go ahead and say thank you.
Wow. Thank you.
Amazing.
What an incredible session indeed.
Thank you so much for joining, because this was incredible. It was right up my alley. I wanted to say a couple things. One, I have already ordered the book. I'm waiting for it to show up. And two, I took
we exclude you from the lot we'll be doing. Me excluded either. I have that in ebook. Yeah, I have that in ebook, as we've discussed. You know, I have the Audible version and the, but I want a signed copy, Coach Con.
Oh, that would be cool. That would be worth the money, let's say. So everybody, we're going to send you details on how to sign up for a raffle for both of those things. We have to do a little figuring out on our side, but we will send you an email so you can take part. And if the easiest way to deal with that is, once we get the information together, we'll put that into the information we send you with our PDU code information. The other thing I wanted to mention is I also took the quiz about everything, and I have to say, you totally nailed it. I am all about productivity, and that's exactly where I came in. So I really enjoyed taking that. It was also insightful, made me think. So really amazing work. And so if any of you haven't already looked at the book, the blueprint, the engagement blueprint, I think is an amazing book. You're going to want to take a look at that. It's really terrific. And so one lucky winner will already get a book, but for the rest of you, I think it's available on Amazon and lots of other ways. I'm getting mine on Amazon. I decided to go back to paper books for a while. So thank you. This was amazing, Coach Con. Join us for the other events on International Women's Day. See the playlist below.